Husky here with another Fantasy House bonus episode. I got my homeboy. We're going both ways today. My homeboy Jorge Chediak is here, and we're going to talk about. Last time we talked about options trading, which I'm just kind of learning about, and we just wanted to kind of put that conversation out there. And then now we're going to talk about another one of his passions: self-driving cars. Which who isn't interested in that?
I don't know if people are as excited about it as I am. Anyone that I've talked to about this in the past is usually skeptical.
What are they skeptical about? Like, what's so complicated and skeptical about?
Well, they worry about the safety,
Okay.
and some of the stuff that I go on to say is it's a little hard to believe.
Okay. Well, let's start with the safety part, because the safety part to me, when I really did some deep reading about it, like maybe it was a year ago when they started to really, was it maybe a year or two ago when they really started saying, hey, these are coming, whether you like it or not, they're going to be here. And I remember reading about it, and they were saying like the fail rate of them, even though there's still some stuff that's not worked out, is so much less than human error. So even with that safety thing, you're like, statistically, you're just that much safer in your car.
That is correct. Correct. I mean, Google has cars that have driven millions of miles autonomously, fully autonomously. And then the bulk of their accidents have been like rear ends, like people crashing into them. So,
oh, really? It wasn't even them. It was other people.
It wasn't even them.
Proving our point exactly.
We hear when Tesla cars have accidents and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, but, the battery thing. Like Yahoo will be like, and batteries went everywhere. You're like, all right.
Yeah, things like that. But the honest truth is, self-driving cars are coming.
Yep.
All of the major corporations are working on self-driving cars. Apple, Google, Tesla, obviously. Uber, Lyft, and even the major car manufacturers. And I'll tell you why. So basically, the writing is on the wall.
The autonomous wall. That was
the autonomous wall. Okay. All the cars being produced are moving towards fully electric, but beyond that, they're moving towards fully autonomous.
Okay.
And what that means, a level 4 fully autonomous means that there's no human interaction at this point. The car is fully self-driving.
The whole thing. Like you hop in, you're like, car.
The whole thing.
Oh, it's awesome.
And actually, Elon Musk has said that the cars that are on the streets right now that he has been selling have the capability of this, but the only thing that's kind of holding back is legislation, obviously. And, but the idea being that once self-driving cars are on the road and they're fully self-driving, what's going to happen is car manufacturers are going to move from this model of selling cars to a model of car subscription service.
Oh, dude, everything's going to be subscription, including cars.
Including cars. And Apple is looking to get in on this. So Uber and Lyft might not even be here in 10 or 20 years. That's how crazy this is, right? Yeah. Because Apple can easily afford, Uber and Lyft, they don't make cars. So anyone who makes a car is already at an advantage. And basically the subscription model, the model will go from car ownership to this subscription-based model. And I'll explain to you really quickly why and how I think that is, that it'll happen. So basically when you buy a car, the car depreciates in value like 50% as soon as you drive it off. As soon as you drive it off the lot.
One of the main things I tell my clients, I'm like, don't buy a car. You can put it towards your down payment. Cars depreciate immediately. Go on. Sorry. It's so important for young people, especially.
So what else, right? Maintenance.
Yep.
Gas.
Yep.
Car insurance.
Oh yeah. All this stuff.
Right.
Nastiness.
So all of that, right? And so if you could present something to someone, to a consumer that says, for $200 or $300 a month, you could get unlimited access to any number of our vehicles in our fleet fully self-driving, will pick you up, take you wherever you need to go, drop you off, I think people will elect to do that.
For sure.
So basically the idea being like, back in the day, we used to own music, you would own a record or a cassette or an 8-track. Sorry, 8-track, I'm assuming you.
No, and, I'm still in my 30s, dog.
Oh, shit, my bad. And I've never even seen an 8-track.
Oh, I've seen them in person. You're like, oh, this must be the 8-track. Yeah, it's fun.
Or this is what an Atari is.
Yeah. Something's wrong with you. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So the idea being that, we used to own music and now we just pay a subscription service for the convenience and we have access to millions of songs whenever, and just the idea of owning it is foreign to us.
I like
so
the car will go on.
Yeah. Well, the car will be something like that. It's not something that you have to own anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Because cars spend 90% of the time parked. Right. So, and the fun part about this is one self-driving car might be able to service like 3 people, right? Because instead of parking, it just drives off and goes and picks somebody else up.
Totally.
So what ends up happening is there will be fewer cars on the road, which means that traffic will become a thing of the past, right? These self-driving cars will be able to speak to each other. So we'll actually be able to fit more cars in the same amount of lanes. We don't have to build more lanes. Cars will be able to drive closer to each other.
Yeah, much more in sync, right, with what's going on with traffic.
Yeah, because they're all kind of communicating and stuff like that. So if we continue this kind of thought pattern, right? So what I'm positing is the self-driving car is going to change the way that we live, the way that the smartphone did, right? The smartphone came out 10 years ago, 11, 12, whatever, mm-hmm. And it's changed the way that we live. It's changed the way that we date. It's changed the way that we work with Uber and Lyft and Postmates, the gig economy. I'm now Robinhood and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So the self-driving car is going to change the way that we fundamentally live the same way that the smartphone did. And the smartphone was literally just a computer in our pocket. So now the self-driving car is a computer in the car, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I like that. That's a good analogy for that. Okay.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is basically there's going to be a mass exodus. People are going to move out of the cities. Parking lots we're going to get parking lots back. We're going to get a lot of space in the city back because we won't have a need for parking.
Unless you're an enthusiast, right? Because I love driving when I'm driving a fun car. So I used to have a Civic and this might sound lame to anybody that's listening. It's like, that's not even that cool of a car. I had a 2-door Civic. And I
always wanted a Civic. You say that now, but I always wanted
it. Was a great car. It was a 2007. So it was like right when they started making them like a little bit sportier, but there's still a Civic with like 150 horsepower. But it was torquey and it was so much fun to drive.
Yeah.
And I used to love it. Like late nights driving home from Hollywood, I'd hop on the freeway and the way I would go through the back end street behind where's the 134, like when you're on the other side of like where Universal Studios and the cemeteries at, and it's just this windy, beautiful road, and it was like having my own little race car, and so I will always want to do that. I think for my
then you're not going to like what I'm going to say next.
Okay,
because what is ultimately going to happen is once there are more self-driving cars on the road than anything else, then the only accidents that will be caused will be
people that drive their own cars. Yeah, totally.
People that are driving their own cars. So eventually they will ban driving.
Interesting. But you can still go to a closed course. You can still go rent out like a Porsche. There's a place on the beach. You can rent out a Porsche and go fucking on a racetrack.
Exactly.
I'll trade that for the safety.
You can still drive on a closed course, or something like that, on private property or whatever. Cars will be in museums, and yeah. And
what about the conspiracy theorist fears, which I think some of them are legitimate, right? For the real flag waving Americans that are just like, hey, you're going to make it so like a company can like these psychos that run the companies. No offense, Elon, I'm a huge fan, but also I don't like any one group of these, what do they call them, plutocrats or whatever, when they're able to just like press a button, are they going to be able to shut my car off if they don't like what I said politically, or if they're mad at me, or if the laws change and they say, guilty until proven innocent instead of the way it is currently, they just shut my car off, and it's like, wow, like I can't get out of town right now. Like that kind of stuff is scary to those of us that, look at those things.
For sure. I feel like, I don't know. Honestly, I mean, I wouldn't worry about that stuff, but there are ethical concerns, right? Like, so let's say a self-driving car, normally, if you were driving a car and you were going to get into an accident, instinctively, you would look to preserve your own life.
Just like you're like the last thing that you do, like without even thinking about it, when your brain just goes into emergency mode. It's just like, how do I not get killed here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but the self-driving car, it's like, who does a self-driving car try to save?
Yep.
The other car, you, and if you die in this accident, who's responsible? Is it the car manufacturer? Is it the software?
Huge ethical complexity right there.
But I will say this, like, self-driving cars will not text and drive. They will not drink and drive. They won't be distracted and driving. They won't fall asleep.
They won't be tired. Driving. That's the biggest one, right? Being tired and driving.
Falling asleep, at the wheel and stuff. Computers are a lot better at doing these boring, repetitive, things than the human mind
totally.
is. Totally. So that's why I'm ready to just hand it over.
Yep.
I want to imagine the time that you would get back, right? You can sleep, you can read, you can be on your phone, you can do all the things that you want to do when you're in a car now.
Oh yeah.
But you can't because you're driving.
Oh, totally.
So that's my 2 cents on it. But all of the companies right now, Apple, everyone is investing in self-driving cars. And the funny part is like, when you think of self-driving cars and electric cars right now, you think of Tesla. Tesla's model is still car ownership, because if Tesla said we're moving to a subscription model, like, people wouldn't be buying Teslas, So right now Tesla is kind of showing a proof of concept, and I think it's got, a prototype. Elon Musk is not going to say that they're moving to a subscription service model when they're selling cars that are $100,000.
How do you think are you a fan of the way Teslas look? Because I feel like they're the ugliest. I feel like they're like an old dorky dude that likes tribal tattoos idea of futuristic stuff. I'm like, why couldn't Lexus make Lexus makes some really good looking cars. I'm like, why couldn't they make a good electric car? What's so hard for Tesla to do that?
That makes an excellent point, because basically I think that's the only thing that'll differentiate the self-driving car services in the future. You say, okay, what kind of car do you want to be seen in? Do you want to ride around in Ford's, self-driving autonomous fleet where you can get picked up in a Mustang, an EV Mustang if you want, or an EV, Ford F-150? I feel like
they don't sound that cool though if you're not actually driving it. If you're just sitting passenger, you're like, who cares how racy this car is? I'm like, pick me up in an egg. I don't give a shit. I'm not driving it.
I know. And that's what I think. It's like, I think we're going to, that'll be the difference. Your brand loyalty, will determine what, self-driving subscription service you might subscribe to or whatever. But the way that I see it too is like Apple, with its walled garden, and the smartphone and the whatever. It's like this thing, it's like Apple Music, it's like if you have it, your life's just easier. If you have an iPhone and you have Siri, you get into the car and, Siri knows everything, or you can talk to her and ask her and she,
I fought all this for so long, Jorge. I was like, ugh, for all this stuff. And then eventually had to for work. And it's like, I wouldn't be able to, just to unlock the door when I'm showing a home, I have to have an app. And I had an iPhone that the battery was bad on it and it would just drain. I was like, you can't have your battery drained when you're showing a client a home. They're like, oh, right this way. And then you go to unlock the key and you're like, oh, my battery. So I had to just have okay, I got to get a newer phone. It's a business expense. And then after you do that, there's no way I can go back. I know some people have gone to flip phones because they're addicted to the smartphone apps and all that stuff and Twitter and all that stuff. So they just do. But it's
I definitely considered it.
I can't go back. I mean, I use it for work. And now, like, if a client sends me something while I'm on the road, and I park and I'm like, oh, I need to be able to use the MLS app right now and see, like, look into the details of his house, because I can't wait until I drive home and at the end of my day, they want to know this information right now. So it's like, I'm not going back. And I feel the same thing will happen with cars. And as much as I love driving, I love my favorite times driving have mostly actually been on closed course, like what is it, K1 kart racing, stuff like that. So if that becomes just for enthusiasts, where I can actually go and rent a Porsche or a Ferrari and do that once a month or every few months, that I think would get it out of my system. Plus, we're talking about the future anyways, right? Technology. I'm gonna have a VR. I'm gonna have a VR Formula One cockpit.
I mean, who cares? Honestly,
I'm with you. Let's do this.
I would say, I've been saying this like 5 or 10 years, but who knows? I mean, what we're really talking about is 20, 30, 40 years, but in our lifetime, which is exciting.
How long do you think we're going to live? Speaking of futurology, do you think
I want to live to be 116? That's my goal.
Why that number?
I want to see the year 2100. Very
cool answer.
Yeah, I want to live to see that century, I guess, just so I can say I lived in, like, how many centuries? I don't know.
That's kind of cool. Yeah. Speaking of which, this next year coming up is I don't know if you're a fan of the cartoon C Lab 2021.
Oh, of course.
It's coming up, and I'm just like, dude, it's almost C-Lab year. So that's a classic Adult Swim reference for anyone listening. No, I was just curious about life extension, because to me, that's also the most like interesting stuff about the future talk that I hear.
For sure. They say the breakthroughs that we'll make in medicine will make it in the next, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 years or whatever. We'll make it so that we're living, maybe 2 to 3 times our life expectancy, Dude,
that's how long it's going to take to talk my wife into letting me be a swinger. Like, we've been together for 170 years, baby. Can I just have one hall pass? Come on. I'm 200 years old. Just let me get some strange, baby, please. You can't do it in a standard human lifetime. That's all I'm saying. A regular marriage? Come on. No, dude, I'm excited.
But then again, like, this year, like, average life expectancy has gone down for the first time because of, like, fentanyl and suicide rates. So,
oh yeah, the overall average is not a fantastic thing. It's not exciting. It's sad. But if you do have the means to take care of yourself, to eat properly, if you're doing those things, maybe we'll live a long time. I don't know. I just want to, like, I think Tom Bilyeu was talking about on Impact Theory. And I was like, it just hit the nail on the head for me. He was like, I just want to live forever. He's like, I would just like to master a lot of the stuff that I'm fascinated by. And I'm like, that's me. Like, I don't think I would get bored. I think I'd be like, now I want to get good at archery. Now I want to get good at the skydiving. Or like, I would just want to go down the list. Like, so to me, I'm not like, who wants to live that long? It sounds so awful. I'm like, no, dude, if you're in a healthy spot, like, if you can still have an adrenaline rush and be surprised and feel like a kid, like, oh.
And if we can upload our consciousness, like, sign me up.
That sounds depressing and scary, though.
Maybe that's a conversation for another time.
I love how I brought you into that. I was like, live forever. Then you're like, put our consciousness on a computer. Like, hell no, you're freaking me out. Guy, dude, there's so much stuff for us to riff on. Let's call it for right now, because the electric car or self-driving car stuff is awesome. But we should come back to it and riff some more on some stuff.
Yeah. Super
cool. Thanks for doing this.
Of course.
Jorge brought us some wisdom and some thought-provoking conversations. I hope you guys had a good time on this Fantasy House bonus episode with Jorge. And I'll talk to you guys soon. I hope you're doing well. Ciao. Oh, we almost forgot. Jorge just reminded me. You were talking about the relevancy of autonomous vehicles and real estate. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So basically so if we go along this thought of, traffic being less and this kind of de-urbanization, right? Like, people moving out of the city, right? Like, if you were buying a home based on your commute, and your commute literally is now just miles, because the self-driving car is going like 110 miles per hour, right? Because speed limits have gone up because it's safer now. then moving, buying a house that's 60 miles away all of a sudden is not, an hour commute or 2-hour commutes in the morning. So the idea is people are going to move out of cities. And this is where I think, real estate comes into play. All of a sudden, you're looking at Joshua Tree, you're looking at Lancaster, you're looking at, things that aren't desirable right now because of traffic.
Yeah.
Well, if traffic was not a factor, so I think people are going to start to move out of the city to get more home,
Yeah. Not just more home, but different home. Like you mentioned Joshua Tree. And it's like so many people love the idea of the desert, but it's way too far to live. But if you had, even if you still had the traffic, Jorge, you would be able to be not concentrating on the road. So you could actually get 2 hours of your tasks done in the morning.
Totally.
Maybe if you have a job that requires phone calls like me, maybe you're doing 2 hours of phone calls before you even get to the office.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's awesome.
Imagine the productivity, even if traffic didn't change. But I'm saying traffic is going to disappear, and I know that's controversial, especially for LA. And it's something that we can't even comprehend, But yeah, 5G, Wi-Fi 6, those are two very important things that are going to make self-driving cars need. Think of it as like a network, so that they can communicate with each other. So with the rise of 5G and Wi-Fi 6, we will see, that the infrastructure is there for self-driving cars. And
so cool.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying it relates to, you and real estate, because right now, I mean, I don't know about you. I can't really afford anything in the Los Angeles area. And, and the idea of living outside of LA isn't desirable right now. But knowing that in 10 years, 20 years or something like that, it's all of a sudden making, these properties that are further away more attractive.
Totally.
So you got to think about the future.
And you do. That's a great way to end it. You got to think about the future. I love it, dude. Thanks for talking about all this stuff. So great. And
of course,
I can't wait to talk more. Like this podcast has so much about creativity and imagination, and future tech and magic is like what drives the awe-inspiring part of Fantasy House, which is like
science. Yeah, science fiction. Jules Verne wrote about submarines and nuclear power, before we had it. So
yeah. So let's talk more about this stuff again. Thanks for being here, Freaking rad.